Hello, everybody. This is Robert. It's been a while. I was talking to Robert over at the Razor's Edge. He got me uh, thinking about stuff and talking about different techniques and different processes of how we all handle our sharpening. And I wanted to go over things that I've kind of come across or developed as I've been working at honing and using Arkansas stones. I've been lately trying to really progress my edges on cauticles, and um, they seem to be still kind of not eluding me, but I'm not getting as consistent results as I care for. But anyways, I wanted to go over some of the steps and things that I've kind of come up with. Nothing new. There's nothing new, but things that I've found out that work for me. So this right here, these two are two different Washitas. This one's a lot coarser. This one much finer grain, and then this is, I'm assuming, is a true hard, and it's got the not quite surgical black, but pretty close to what I got on my Dan's whetstone. Surgical black, labeled as or sold as. And then I have, it's an okay edge, but it's just not quite what I need. So I'm going to start over from it, but I wanted to discuss the process of these and what I look for to kind of push my edges to where they're still comfortable, but they perform well. First thing I noticed when I was using slurry stones is my apex would kind of, instead of be completely flat, they would kind of roll at the edges, at the final apex. They would just, instead of being flat with the light reflection and scope I use, or not scope, but magnifying glass, that I would notice that I was curving at the very apex. And one thing I noticed with cutting with arc stones is they're very rigid on that grind on the scratch pattern, and so I've heard other people say that you can't cheat a arc stone. Basically, the way it cuts is it stays at a certain point, and if you don't get quite to the very apex of the tip, you're not going to be getting a cutting edge. It's not going to pass your cutting tests, like with the hair or with packing peanut or tomato or whatever. So getting there at that point, I find a certain strategy that helps. So for one, the way you finish or surface the texture of the stone. And with these stones, you can basically make them what cutting grit or aggression you want to call it as you want. And it all depends on the stone. The abrasive you use on them will reflect that on how it cuts the steel. But also you have also porosity, and like this one, the grain is a lot finer. This I can get almost shaving edge off of this. This is a pre-finisher. It does so well. This is, of course, the base. It'll set the bevel to mid-range on this. And being able to stretch out your range of your stone really helps with the progression at the end. So basically you're trying to get to, when you have your scratch patterns, the deepest scratches, those are the ones you're trying to remove and get to the bottom of those to get the most even alignment of both sides of the metal to the scratch patterns. And so that's why you work from a lower grit to a finer grit. So by going and using, let's say this one, I could use a slurry. It's going to tear up the edge, but it's basically to reset. And then I would go to water, and that would be the next progression. And then after that, I would use straight Dawn dish soap. And with the Dawn dish soap, it's dispersing that surface tension, and so you're getting more of that metal in contact, almost like a suction, more in contact with the stone. And what this does is it forces a consistency that you can sometimes get inconsistency with your hand, with your strokes when you maybe lean too far to the side on certain things. So it kind of helps pull that into the stone, that I find, and I get a consistent result. And so after I would do that, I would go to a soap, this is a glycerin soap, and that moves it away from those particles even more. And then you can go, after that, you would go to an oil, which this is a thin oil, baby oil, and it does the same thing. So each of those steps, you're manipulating how much contact you're having with the stone and how far into those particles that you're getting. And so you can really push that stone from the lower grit to mid-range to upper mid-range, and then do the same on the next process while still maintaining that regular scratch pattern. And then as you go up, those scratch patterns will get less deep. And then you would move on into your finish. And it's the same concept as with you're doing slurries on Japanese stones and all that stuff. It's just a different method. And so it's the same with controlling or manipulating the surface texture to control, and then your pressure, of course, and your lubrication you use. And so I just wanted to talk about that. Hopefully that makes sense to somebody and that they could experiment with it. And that's what it's all about, is experimenting, finding out for yourself, finding out what works for you. And hopefully you get good results and it makes sense for you. I will talk to you later. Thanks for watching. Probably 20 minutes ago.
Oh, that she was here?
Uh-huh.